Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your sensei, Al Bob. Here I am on the Bob, in a very nice place. Just had lunch. I was reading people and giving them the word of God, and they bought me lunch and some other goodies. Anyway, I didn't do it for that, but it happened, so that's always nice. So if you want to stick something on my PayPal, I figured it out, and it's all good. Just go to PayPal and put down the dude awake 42 at Gmail when it asks who's it going to. Dude awake 42 at Gmail. And if you want to talk to me or get a hold of me or your palm, like from about here up to here, like like that, so I can see all of this and all of that. I'll, you know, email you back with what I think. We can have a nice little conversation. There are many people that I talk to in that fashion. So, what is God? And what is the science experiment? Right? First of all, I have to realize that science is the most subjective. I mean, if you study science at all, very seriously, I mean, as me, the double doctor, the itinerant scholar, that has been spending the last 40 years of his life in places of research and of deep thought, right? And here's a good science experiment. And the best thing about science experiments is when they're not just a theory, but you can do them over and over again and get the same kind of outcome. So go buy yourself 2 gallon jugs of water, best distilled water, right? And that's about $1.50. That used to be 67 cents just a few years ago, but now it's about $1.50 give or take. And you on one jug you write in big letters hate, right? And in the other you write love. Now you can put other things underneath it, like hate. You can have fear, anger, disappointment, right? And under love, you can have joy, forgiveness, um, things of that nature. But just the straight up hate and love. The love jug and the hate bottle, right? So what you need to do is like sit yourself down and the 2 jugs, and you put them someplace that it's in your kitchen, your living room, your TV, wherever, not in your bedroom, but someplace that has a seat and a shelf that you can place them there. Don't touch them. Don't move them. They're there, and you look at the hate one and you evacuate. Evacuating is get everything out of it. Have you ever vomited? That's evacuation. Have you had diarrhea? That's evacuation. Elimination is more urination and moving your bowels, right? So you evacuate, you eliminate all the hate, anger, fear, and disappointment out of not only your body, but your emotions and your spirit, right? And you just think of all those things that upset you, and you visualize putting them in the bottle, see it clearly, right? And then you take everything that brings love to your mind, all the joy, all the forgiveness, all of those things that bring love, right? And you put it in there, right? And so this little child over there is a perfect example because it is professing love and hate all at the same time. There is no two things, right? It's just bing, 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 right? So that's what I love about God. I basically, after 2014, I died in a plate of spaghetti in a mobster restaurant with men who, were desperate lawyers because they work with guys. If they don't pull off what they need to pull off, they usually end up as, fertilizer. And me, I'm just a negotiator. I don't have a stick in the fight, but I still get paid pretty well. And they drag me around to all these kind of clubs and meet all these people to be their emissary, not just in the boardroom, but wherever, right? And I did that for a good 10 years and I gained 200 plus pounds. And I was already being the itinerant scholar, so I was sitting on my butt. I was no longer being the artist. I mean, I was always the electrician, always the photojournalist, always the artist. But I did those things within the context of being the itinerant scholar and being the negotiator, right? And so, and in each of those things, I've had many careers, and I was quite successful in all of them. So you get to a successful place, and what do you do? Do the same thing over and over. You know, I worked for Klaus Oldenburg, I worked for Dali, I worked for Andy Warhol, I worked for a lot of those guys who were very successful, and they just did the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. Now, there's other people like Kiki Smith, who was one of my apprentices, and go look her up on Google. She's pretty famous, right? You could email, did you know Sensei Al Bob before he was Sensei Al Bob? But he was your boss as an electrician, you know. You might get a response from her on that one. And she was working in Tin Pan Alley, right? I used to come down and visit her and bug her. And she had an abandoned, you know, I was like living in an abandoned building. So she lived in one right across from the South Street Seaport, right on the East River, right? You know, FDR Drive was like right over her head. And we moved in there, and there was gas line, electric line. You know, I just tapped straight into them. It was an abandoned building. No one even thought of looking if anyone's living in this thing. And we had all the fish wanted because they just would throw it in dumpsters. I was still good. You just went to it and got the best one. We grow them up, and I had these gigantic dock heaters, electric dock heaters and gas ducts. If you were underneath it, even though the wind was blowing through, I mean, it was one corner of that loft where there was always, if it was snowing, there was a pile over in that corner. So you could ask her about that. I don't know if she's rich and famous now. So, but at least she's an artist I know, and I know lots of artists, and a lot of them keep doing it. Me, I keep doing art, but I don't I had it in, I was in the Whitney Annual. After that, why I helped start White Columns, PS1. I was the guy who was starting it, right? Not just having a show in it. I mean, I was having shows in White Columns before it was White Columns. When I was living in the reason it's called the Ear Inn is because, when we redid the electrics, I sparked up the neon light out front that said bar, and the two little tits on the B didn't light up, so it said ear. So I said, and Richard Heyman, who was the other, he and I jumped into that place at the same time, and we both were looking for a place to live, not really, but it had one of the oldest liquor licenses, and I was connected into the city government, so we opened up, no problem. We didn't need to spend $100,000 in lawyers. We just went down and filled out a form and gave them $50, and bingo, we had a legal place. Now I had tons of unlegal, I call them zombie restaurants and zombie nightclubs, meaning places that, up in the South Bronx, in the Lower East Side, way over in Alphabet City and, Z-Land. Anyway, so, what else can I say? Have a life. Get a life. Serve God's unconditional love through Jesus Christ's unconditional forgiveness. Meaning you could be Baptist, you could be Buddhist, you could be Shinto, you could be, you name it. It doesn't matter. God is God. Jesus is Jesus. And you can call him by any name you want to. Like Shakespeare said, rose by any other name smells as sweet. So if you are serving love's co-creation, that's all you got to do. And I really enjoy the fact that as I, look at other people who have way more watched sites because they're aware of the context and the mechanism of the algorithm. I don't care. I just do these things. And the people need to watch them. The people need to get a hold of me at the dudeawake42 at Gmail. People who want to give me something, put it on PayPal, the dudeawake42 at Gmail, right? It works now, so go ahead, do it. And this is a short story. So today is January 2nd, 2024. And this year, we're either going to have world peace or we're going to be sitting in rubble, just like what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on in the Strip. It's going on in 200 other places, and like Sudan, it's worse. Instead of having 2 million people dislocated, they got 8 million people dislocated. Instead of 50,000 dead, they got like 500,000 dead. But do you hear about it? No. Why? Because they're black, and the entities, the hidden hand, Sudan. Why they have nasty war there between their army and their rapid defense force is because the hidden hand said to those boys, because they used to have the despot, they got rid of him, and they were eking towards democracy. Those guys either got killed or put in jail, and then the guys, the two generals, the guy in charge of the army who has the air force and big guns, and rapid force. And so rapid force goes into a county or a city or a town and starts shooting the place up. And then they get the radio signal that the airplanes are on their way to bomb them, and they get out of town, leaving the people like dazed and confused, and their mothers on the ground dead. And then the Air Force comes in and cluster bombs everything, with the little seal of the American flag, or the Russian flag, or the Chinese flag, or the French flag, because everyone gives weapons to kill the innocent. So, what's going to happen is, so Israel is pulling its ground forces out for two reasons. One, they don't even know how many Hamas they killed. They bombed the shit out of things. They killed 50,000 people. Once they dig up all the concrete and find the bodies under the crushed buildings, it'd probably be about 50,000 people dead. But right now, the diseases are starting winding up. And unless it all stops, everyone stops shooting, and the trucks come in big ways, and thousands of doctors and nurses come in and take care of those people, what you're going to have is this petri dish. And one of the reasons why IDF is pulling out is fungus is going around. Now, the soldiers are like all buttoned up, and they're getting these funguses. And the fungus seems to, from my sources, is a very strange fungus because it acts like a bacteria, acts like a virus, but it's a fungus. And it's airborne, and it loves diesel exhaust. So anywhere where you're going to find a lot of diesel, you might find this fungus. And it goes like fire, like gasoline, and it eats you up alive. And so the Hamas guys aren't killing the soldiers, they're wounding them, because it costs a lot of money to take care of a wounded guy, so they have to take him back, right? And the Ukraine was doing that to the Russians, same thing, but the Russians don't care. They probably take the wounded people, dig a hole, put them in it, and put the bulldozer over them. And, that's only a rumor I've heard. But anyway, one of two things is going to happen. So Israel's going to get really frustrated, and the public are going to get really frustrated. So, they're going to try to press that thing that the Supreme Court in Israel said, nope, can't do that. And they're going to have martial law. And they're just going to start arresting their own citizens and sending into dark sites that people never see again. It's going to be like, Chile, right? That's what's going to happen relatively soon, before February in Israel, right? And so what's the Israelis going to do? If the ones who have money and can will leave Israel. So there'll be a big flight of people out of Israel, like maybe 10 to 20%. But the people with the money and the power, and had businesses and were the shakers and made Israel the nice place it is, right? Hezbollah is up there in Beirut, and they have a serious military. Hamas is just a bunch of guys on motorcycles, right? With AK-47, some RPGs, and they're kicking Israel's butt. Now they don't have any. They can't shoot down the airplanes, so the airplanes can bomb the crap out of. And what they have, they turn, the Strip into dust, and made it. They have gone into the water aquifers and poisoned them with their skunk water. And And so that place will not support life, period. Right? And now they're pulling the army out, but there's still got people in there killing, and killing mostly innocent civilians. And so they're, within 2 weeks, they'll have three-quarters of their land forces out of there. And they will pull back to the north, and they will have put a barrier to push as many Palestinians into Rafah as they can, and then they're going to nuke it. When they do that, everyone's going to be in shock. And Hezbollah will, get ready to obliterate Israel because they can. And what they will do, Israel will nuke them, but they're underground. You can blow up a nuclear weapon, detonated 1,200 feet above the ground, and everybody standing on the ground is fried. But if you're underground by 6 feet and you're not right directly underneath that thing, yeah, you're going to get a little radiated. You're still going to be able to fight. And you're going to be radiated to the point where I'm going to die relatively soon, so I'm going to kick these shitheads' ass, right? So Hezbollah will be at that matter. They got 70 to 100,000 guys who've been fighting in Iraq and in Syria who got some shops. Whereas the IDF, they have technology. I mean, those guys in the tanks, it's like running a video game. Well, they have AI that's picking all the targets. That's why so many people are dying. It's not just random carpet bombing, right? So they will have nuked them. They will nuke Beirut, and that'll be it for Beirut, right? And Lebanon. And but the fighter guys and all their missiles, right? So after that whole area has been nuked, they will pop up and take out the main capital and the main port, and then pour over because they've got a big fence. I mean, look at what basically what Hamas did was show that Israel is not wearing any underpants. It's a bunch of guys. They just had one bulldozer, just right through, and the whole thing was to hit these towns right on the border, which were military sites to begin with. If you got a little kibbutz that's right there, and pretty much everybody in that kibbutz is a military guy, well, that's a military target. So all those towns that they went into were a military target. And why isn't Israel showing any videos? They have cameras everywhere. Why aren't they showing it? Because if they did, they would show that their own IDF killed most of those 1,200 people. Why they had to take the thing down from 1,400 to 1,200 is because it was pretty obvious those 200 people were whacked by the IDF, right? But what, the Israelis, back in the day, they captured this one lieutenant and this other guy. And the Israeli people were so incensed, they wanted those guys back. So they forced their government to give everybody, the 20,000 guys who were in jail, who were arrested for no reason, were sent to the Strip. And so that's why Hamas got 200 to 300 hostages to do that, to get Israel's attention. And why do we not hear from any of these people? Because Hamas because they were valuable people. They didn't treat them bad. They didn't do what Israel did, made everyone be in their underpants and then keep them out in the cold for 2 days. No, they didn't do that. What they did was they protected them. Whatever little food they gave it to the hostages, and a few 100 or so hostages that have been traded back have come back to say, hey, and they gave children and old people, that were the first to get traded. And they said, no, they treated us nice. Yeah, it was cold. It was down in a thing, and the 50 people who got killed were killed by the IDF. So this year we're either going to have peace where everyone goes, okay, that's it. Because what's going to happen, Israel has taken away all the guardrails, taken away all the, illusion that we live in the UN, you got to give me a break. They haven't stopped anything. UN was set up after World War II to basically be there so we wouldn't have wars, right? To intercede, to have diplomacy. Is it working? No. So Israel's showing it's not working, And good old Vladimir Putin, he came, Guys, remember, if you're sending me something, put it in all large because I can't see, right? And the lights in my eyes. And let's see. Jimmy Birmingham's John, additional videos. John. And like 3 years. Well, John is John. And, Freud said when someone does the same thing over and over, expects a different outcome, and not really. It basically shows that John isn't crazy, but he is neurotic. He's lazy, and his parents have paid all his bills. He went to L.A. for 2 or 3 months and stayed in Airbnb. Probably ran up a bill of 50 grand. Didn't do anything. I mean, I kept texting him, "Hey, buddy, why don't you? You're there in L.A. Why don't you go and do something, right?" So, is that John Birmingham's channel? Additional videos. I haven't like 3 years. Well, that's not true. I talk to John on the phone, once or twice a month. I email him once or twice a month. I don't really comment on his videos because they're all the same and they all reference the same neurotic activity. So, why should I waste my time? It doesn't seem to do John any good, and he just gets upset. He then texts me like a 15-page thing about how evil I am and terrible just because I'm telling the truth. So John is, I care about John. I want John to be, I had work full-time 75 years at the rate of 5 hours. And I've worked my whole life, right? And my grandma gave me 2 rules. Don't do anything you don't really enjoy doing, and don't work for anybody who doesn't need you more than you need them. And since I was 9 years old, I've been working, real job, like as an electrician. And I basically, every morning I woke up to go to work. I wasn't at my parents' house. I was living in Grandpa Stoll's storefront, right? He'd come in, he'd take me to breakfast at the Pepsi Diner. Do you remember the Saturday Night Live skit of the Greek guys? Pepsi, 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 right? That's the Pepsi Diner. I lived right next to it. So did they. They lived on Duane Street. I lived right next to them, And I had a zombie nightclub called the what were they called? Those guys who run around in your neighborhood, eat all your garbage. And they're mostly rabid. How are you gonna live when it gets too cold? Well, it's never too cold, Sean. Last night it was 13 degrees, right? And I was under my electric blanket in my man cave, and it was nice and toasty, 80 degrees. Now getting out, inside the man cave was 38 degrees. So that was a good 6 degrees above freezing. So there was no ice or anything forming on the wings. And I just kind of, when it came time for me to get up, I had what I was going to wear, this ensemble I'm wearing, I had, in bed with me. So it was all nice and warm. I kind of put a lot of clothes on underneath the electric blanket, came up, all my clothes were already toasty. I took care of getting ready to leave, charged this thing up and went off and did my little errands, right? So because my neighbor left his beater, New Year's Eve, he left it there. And he said, "Oh, you can run around for a week, I won't need it." And, because he's got lots of other vehicles. This is the least of his beaters. And he knows that I'll take care of it. I'll, make sure it's at least running because I don't want it to die like my other car died. But see, when you lose everything, when you have nothing, when you have mommy and daddy not paying the bills, no one's paying my bills. All I have is God who's watching my back. And Jesus is the pilot. I'm just a co-pilot saying, "Hey, Jesus, it all looks good. Keep going. I'm here." My whole life is I am a slave to God and Jesus, period. That's all I do. So I went around and did them all little errands, and everyone I bumped into, the person who I saw who could use, hey, let me read your palm. And then I would have a talk to them and talk about the issues in their life and give them prayers that they could use to get away from their ego. And see, that's John. John can't get away from his ego. He is totally, what is sin? Sin is when you're disconnected from God. It's not sex. It's not anything. I mean, all that stuff. God made everything. Anal sex, not a sin. God gave it to us. Transgenderedness, not a sin. God gave it to us. Meaning God made everything, right? And if you don't realize that this world we live in is an illusion, it's a sandbox for your soul to figure out what God wants you to do. Well, it's just taken me 64 years, and then another 5. In the 2 years I hung out with John Boy, he bought the school, and I was around him for 2 years. But he threw me out 32 times, and most of them in the middle of winter at night. I couldn't see anything, right? But I knew God had my back, and I kind of, as soon as I could get off the mountain and onto a, county road, because the road from the school down to the first road was like this, and it was, the wind blew right on it, so it was always a skating rink. You had to toboggan down that road. And that was another 3 miles until you got to the county road that they either plowed or salted that you could drive on without killing yourself, but still. And then you had to go another 6 miles till you got in town. So John did that 30 times. It was so hard to being a nice person. Well, that's not too nice to throw an old guy like me who can't even see out in the middle of the night, You cost me money. You cost me. I did more stuff for him. It's like ridiculous, Whatever chump change he gave me, if people give me money, I don't say, oh, I can't take that. No, I can take it, You want to give it to me? It's, thank you very much, right? And I used to work taking care of things like John. And I said, every word out of my mouth, I know what I'm saying. So when I said taking care of things like John, that's what John is, a thing. Because he has a family, he has a wife and 2 kids. And he hasn't really seen them in 10 years. When they left him, because they couldn't take it anymore, I think the oldest boy was about 8 or 9. The other boy was about 7 or 8. And they didn't have a little baby. Danica, his ex, had a crying cat like that, but with a guy, she was horny. She had sex with a tow truck man, and they had a baby. He didn't care. He couldn't make any money out of her, so not right. And John keeps talking about how that little girl is his, right, John? That little girl is yours, And he went to Texas 10 times for all of probably 25 days in 10 years, right? So I had friends who got, had worse breakups than this guy, right? I had this one friend who was a really good musician, and he played, they lived in Brooklyn. He had a good career. He, the wife they had a family. She was French, and he kept going out on the road and fooling around, and, getting diseases and infecting her, and she got pissed off, and she just took the kids and went to France because she could. They all had French passports, right? And so he was like freaked out. He would just start drinking and just lost his everything, right? And I said, no. What's wrong? He goes, my family's living, I'm not so alone. I said, well, you were such a jerk, but everyone loves me. Yeah, so everyone loves you, big deal, but you're still a jerk. If you really want your family, you got to prove it. So get your manager to book you in places in Europe. They love you in Europe. Go over there. And he did. He got himself an RV, and he basically went into the little town in France that near Belgium that they were in. He went straight to the police. He had all his legal documents of who he was and the divorce and all of that stuff, and had all of her stuff, and basically said, listen, I don't want to cause any trouble. That's why I'm coming to see you first. Now, I've looked at this, and there's a place right here about a block from my wife's house that I can actually legally park at, right? and I'm going to rent this little lot, and I can have water and septic and electricity, and I can be totally legal with this thing there. And they went through it and go, yep, it's all I want to be is there and be there for them, right? And if my kids want to come visit me, they can come visit me. My wife wants to come and talk to me, she can, but I'm not going to go, knock on her door. But those kids are going to have, the school is on the other side of that lot. So they're going to see me. I'll be sitting out there in a lounge chair and, Daddy, that's what he did for 7 years. Within the first year, she loosened up because she still loved him, but was not going to go back to his, thing as usual. So it took them another few years, and they got married again, and then had a couple more babies, and now they're happy and they're living in France. And John could do all of the above because he has it in him to do it. But does he do it? No, because just read the stuff that he's writing. No, I wasn't with 200 women. I love, hey, if I was, I'm the dude. No, but I grew up in New York City. I was around the art world my whole life, like from age 11 when I walked by the Council on Foreign Relations. And so Google this. There's a thing called Automation House. Billy Cluth, right? He started the Museum of Modern Art. He brought modern art to Europe in the 30s, right? He was over there studying in the Sorbonne, and he saw these great artists, and he did a show in the Armory. It's called the Armory Show. Go look that up on Google, Armory Show. He was my mentor, right? And his, I don't even know what to call Madame Blavatsky, not Madame Blavatsky, Madame Olga Kluver. She had what was known as a curiosity shop on 38th Street and Lexington Avenue. And it was like a time-dimensional portal. So I was exposed to the Theosophical Society and every other secret society there was, right? And I was the kid, right? I would come along, I would just sit around, be very quiet, listen to everybody, right? And so when I was in third grade, I had a cadre, right? And it was the cadre. It wasn't my cadre. Because people seemed to bump into me and say, hey, can I have lunch? We were the people on the outs. We were the other. But we were the cool ones, All the others thought they were cool, but no, we were. Kim Romano, Debbie Soul, both fathers who were mobsters like Tony Soprano. And they were, instead of having sons, they each had a daughter. And they worked together. They were like brothers. And because, the mob, it's like they call it the family, right? And if you look at the history of the mob, it goes back to the earls and the dukes and all of that. Let's see how we're doing for time. Yeah, maybe another 15 minutes before my battery gets close to running out. And John Boy is putting all this stuff up here, which is great, John. Just keep dribbling it out there. It's too long to write. Yeah, so he just, he sent this thing that was like, he just goes on and on and on without any real, these shows have, what would be called a stream of consciousness. My writing is stream of consciousness, but they're all very specific. They're all about something. They all serve God's unconditional love. So you guys want to read my stuff, get a hold of me at the dudeawake42 at Gmail, dudeawake42 at Gmail. So, girls, so Debbie Soul, Lisa Stiles, Kim Romano, and one more was part of our cadre. And there was J.P. Hoagland, whose parents, both his parents, their grandparents, their grandfathers started the NRA after the Civil War. And so, man, I learned everything about guns, right? And then there was Matty Law, blacker than coal. His father was a lawyer. His grandfather was a lawyer. And his great-grandfather was a slave and a lawyer. He worked for the, in a plantation and ran all the businesses because he was that smart. And his owner sent him to the law school in Georgia. And he just pretended to be a slave there for one of the teachers. So that kid is a good example of a child that is given no attention. Why does a child scream like that? It's like John. John writes all this because he gets no attention. Because he doesn't listen. Because he doesn't care about anybody but himself. Because he's scared. He's a petrified little child. He's stuck where somewhere between 3 years old and 12 years old. He's stuck. He just is in a Mobius loop that goes round and round and round. And for those 2 years, even though he threw me out, did all that, because every time he threw out, I would have the most amazing, amazing adventures. I took over a Christian church and ran it almost, did some amazing social and political work for thousands of people. And that's because John threw me out. Otherwise, I'd be there doing the same thing. Go look at that first Old Chrome that everyone, he got 75,000 hits, right? And everyone's so enamored with that story, right? And, now John knows how to navigate the internet. And he's one of the first people on the YouTube. And so, he should be getting a lot more hits than he's getting because he's up there in the algorithm. But nobody watches because he's got nothing to offer. He shows he's doing sit-ups and, walks around with, I find it, he's a mix of Jerry Lewis, the guy who did, Planet Nine, whatever that guy's name was, and Max Headroom, and a few others, and that little kiddo. So just read what he's saying. It's like useless crap. Means nothing. I met Meatloaf. He did a show in this little bar in the Upper West Side before he really. He had his first album out, and his other one where the guy on the motorcycle, the creature on the motorcycle was. He hadn't started doing arenas, so he did. So he showed up, he and his gang, and I was the guy who ran the show. Right? It's one of those websites. I would get paid $100 a night. Right? So anyway, they showed up early. We did a sound check. I took them down to Chinatown and had a nice Chinatown meal. It was kind of summery, so we walked. We didn't take. They had a limo. I said, "Nah." I said, we went down in the limo and went to the Chinese restaurant. And we had a really nice Chinese restaurant, dim sum, the carts and all the steamed stuff. And then we walked across Canal Street up Mott to all the mobster bakeries, right? And we had cannolis and stuff like that. And we walked up that, and I told the Oho So, I just finished building Oho So. Go Google that. That was the first real fancy restaurant in Soho, Oho So, right? And went in there and had cocktails. And then the limo took us from there up to 30 whatever street it was off of 6th Avenue. And we had the show. And then, after the show, they were staying, I think, at some nice hotel. We went there and they drank. I puffed a little bit. We had some fun. They had some girls who thought they were cute who came. So, yes, I took part in that kind of hedonist life. But when I was really in the hedonist life, between 2003 and 2014, working for the Desperate Boy, I worked with guys who had 9-figure salaries, 9-figure, it's more than millions of dollars, right? 9-figure salary, and they were still living from paycheck to paycheck. That's how overextended they were. So they had this overextended lifestyle that was like unbelievable. I didn't have to pay for it. I just hung out with them because they were my clients, right? I would negotiate things for them. And so they take me along because they would bump into the people that they bumped into. They would want me to talk to them, tell a story so they wouldn't have to deal with it. And so, and these kind of places, amazing food, and there'd be a titty dancer on your lap, gyrating on your crotch while breastfeeding you champagne, doing jello shots off their necks. And I went to ask God, I said, "So and God said, no, no, no. You need to do this just to see what hedonism really is and how empty it really is. No, this stuff is not the sin. The sin is when it's all about you." So John is great. John is putting up all the stuff here. I'm going to leave it up here for people to read because John is the canary in the coal mine of the sinful life. The only sin there is being disconnected from God. When you are, I mean, like today, I don't know how many, I was praying to God all day long, hundreds of times, right? And I was in connection. I was driving, I was thinking, and when I stopped getting out of connection with God, because driving my friend's beater is like driving a buffalo. I mean, it's like, and you're about to kill yourself in a minute. So the only way you can drive the thing and be safe is to be in state with God. So let's read one of these. I do God's work, but that stuff was fun and cool looking, in good shape, with long hair, kind of stuff that doesn't matter, but it makes me kind of feel good. And how is that God's work? Could be. I have no idea how it is, because I can only speak for myself. Good. I'll Bob yeah. So anyway, so see, John is trying to get the audience, all two of you, to go over to his channel because he's desperate for some attention, and the only way you're going to go over there is to listen to something I. So he's like, he's like put everything. He puts something up and then puts it on private. So he's now making a channel and John, it would be nice if you were to link every one of those things you put up there, if they get it following, to send them here to Me Dreamland with Sensei Alba. Be nice, John, if you put something into my PayPal account. Your mommy and daddy are paying you 20 grand a month. You could send me a few dollars, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I've been living on $400, and my PayPal kind of went, I couldn't figure it out, and then I did, and now it works. And so, but for a year, I had no PayPal. I lived on my Social Security. After paying all my medical stuff, my insurance, blah 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 blah, I had about $400 disposable income. John spends that in one, day getting stuff from Amazon, And John, all that stuff you got from Amazon, all those deliveries from the supermarket, that is one gigantic carbon footprint that your kids are going to have to live through. Your kids are going to live in a world that you can't even imagine, unless we all let go of our materialist self and love God unconditionally. Then it'll work. See, John, you don't know diddly. You don't. If you go, how can you have a 9-figure salary, yearly salary, and live month to month? That's how you think you spend a lot of money on useless crap. These guys are unbelievable. I mean, we would. Let's see. Really good at business is you find something and you just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over. You make a lot of money. But I've made a lot of money in my years, but I got tired of, doing that. I went and did something else. I mean, I had about 6 different careers that I was like really good at. And when I said, I'm tired with this, and people, what? You're the best at this. You can't, you can make millions if you just, you work 11 weeks of the year and you make this much. If you worked all year long, you can make millions every year. And I said, I don't need to. See you later. Bye. What? What? Meaning, for me to keep living, I knew I had to stop doing what I was doing in the corporate world, period. Zip, zilch. So I did. And that was, God saw me do that and said, whoa, it's my boy. Yeah. Because I didn't make all that money. Me, God put it in my pocket. And by the, you know, I got to a place where I died from it. And then he brought me back right about the time I was about to be murdered in the operating room. He brought me out, back into the ICU. I got the people I really need to take care of me. I took 6 months. It changed my everything. I got my homeostasis back, and it took me 7 years to. So go look at that video John has of me. We had a snowstorm, and I was out there because I knew he was going to throw me out. So I was, I knew that because I lived there already 10 years, I knew every square inch of that road and everything of that place. And I basically scraped off the ice and snow on our driveway where the sun was going to hit it. And if the sun heats it, it would heat it up, the water would melt, the warm water would go down and make rivulets through all the way down, to where Tom's Road cut in. And from that point on, you could get out. Our driveway was like suicide. So, and when the guy came up with the bulldozer to fix it, and I said, yeah, so I needed to be da 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 da. And the guy said, well, $300. Started to do it to make it so it could be passable. And John went out there and just went, the guy said, I don't need this shit for $300, and just went away. And that's why that road is still as fucked up as it is. And that's why I don't go up there, because I don't, John has destroyed probably 10 vehicles since he's lived there. And his mommy and daddy always give him another car. So I don't have a mommy and daddy do. I don't have a car now. I have a couple buds who lend me their Beetles, right? And let's see, I gotta go. Yeah, I'm down to the red line. So anyway, I hope this was entertaining for you all. Yeah, have fun, John, being up there all by yourself. I'll still call you every now and then. I'll still text you every now and then. And you can come and dribble this crap over here on the chat because no one else is saying anything. So, hey, come on, guys. How about some thumbs up? How about some subscriptions and all the rest? But otherwise, I don't care. I know I've touched a few of you, and that's what makes me happy. John, you stay well, my friend. As always, you can do whatever you want, buddy. You have tremendous talent. You have tremendous assets behind you, and yet you don't do squat. You just revel in your own feces. I mean, that's why every toilet, you should have seen the school. Our plumbing was, when George did the plumbing, he almost didn't remember that, shit goes downhill. John used so much toilet paper that he clogged this a 7,000 thing that had like 5 bathrooms in it, and every toilet line was stocked with toilet paper and John's feces, right? And this is John. John had been up there all by himself for 2 years. In those 2-year period, I probably stayed 3 weeks with him. Where he said, well, you were using it too. So, about 3 weeks, right? In 2 years, right? So I was there when the guy, the Smooth Move guy came in. He had the right equipment, and he said he had never seen anything like it. And it was a video of John staying at his Airbnb in LA, and he goes out, and there's two guys there cleaning up the sewer line, right? And he had to. I'm sure the guy said, John, how much toilet paper did you use? And he looks over the corner. It's like 7 cases of toilet paper. He's only been there 3 days. He goes, listen, you can't put toilet paper down the toilet. But John had to put the toilet paper in plastic bags. I have no idea what he did with, by the time he left, he probably had 60 large garbage bags full of toilet paper. So, no. I love it. Love you guys. Talk to you later. This is kind of more fun than me going on about the end of the world.